welcome back. I'm Carrie and this is Keep It Simple DIY, and today we're canning, and we are canning beans. So I soaked these beans overnight. These are pinto beans and black beans, and they've doubled in size. So they are good to go. We are ready to do the next step. So I am actually going to be making just black beans, just plain in the jar. I don't even add salt, nothing like that. Very simple. But for the pinto beans, I'm making refried beans. Now, when you make refried beans, you can't actually mash the beans. You have to just put the beans in with spices, and then you mash them after you open the jar. So you store them in whole bean form and then you mash them after. So we just want to make sure that we're really safe, because if you put them in the jar mashed, they will not be a safe recipe. So speaking of safe recipes, you want to make sure you are always following a safe and tested recipe. So I am going to use the USDA's Complete Guide to Home Canning, and I'm going to use the beans on 4-5, and then I am altering a little bit. So I am going to be basically using the tomato sauce, but instead of doing tomato sauce, I'm going to just change up the spices. So I am going to add some onions. I don't have fresh onions, so I'm going to use minced. I'm going to add some garlic, and then I'm going to add other spices than it calls for to make it refried bean flavor. So you can change spices. That does not affect quality or safety. So let's do this. What we need to do first is drain the beans and then get them boiling. So for the refried beans, I'm going to add in some salt, paprika, chili powder, and cumin. And we are just going to let these boil for 30 minutes. So that's as easy as it is right now. And then we'll come back and we'll jar them up. This is a super simple recipe. So over here I have 3 pots on. If I had a bigger stove, my canner would be on as well. I'm going to put the black beans back here. And so what I've got is the black beans, the plain water, and then the pinto beans will go there. And I'm making sure to dump them away from myself so I don't splash back. Okay, let's grab the pintos. Now, I didn't mention how much I'm starting with. For these pinto beans, I started with 4 pounds, about maybe 4.5 pounds. And for the black beans, I started with 2 pounds. I'm gonna have to do this in batches, I think. Alrighty, let's add the spices here. I think I had a little bit more water than it called for, which I think is fine. I'd rather have too much water than not enough. So I'm gonna add a little bit more spices than it calls for. So we need a tablespoon of cumin. So I might go a little heavy. Okay. 2 tablespoons of paprika. There's a little over 1. That's a little under 1. I need a little bit more. Well, you know, I've got my smoked paprika here. I'm just going to add a little bit of the smoked paprika to make sure we have enough. We need 1.5 tablespoons of chili powder. There's 1. Whoa, we don't want a full 2. And there's a little over 1/2. And then I'm using this Himalayan pink salt because when you're canning, you don't want to use iodized salt. And I need 4 teaspoons, which is the same thing as 1 tablespoon and 1 teaspoon. So I'm going to do the tablespoon first, and then we'll do the teaspoon. And a little extra because I have more water than they said. Gonna cover this up, and once they come to a boil, which is this one there? Not quite, but once they come to boil, they'll boil for 30 minutes, I believe. Let me double check my recipe. You always want to make sure you're doing it. Yes. Yep, it says 30 minutes. So once they boiled for 30 minutes, we'll be back to jar them up. In the meantime, I have all my jars here, so I'm going to get these heated up. The timer just went off, so we are ready to start jarring up our beans. So I've moved things around a little bit, so let me turn you around and show you. So now what I've done is I just moved the water here that I'm going to use to put over the black beans. I've got our pinto beans there, and then I did get the canner on because I wanted that to start heating up. So I have the lid on it to keep the heat in, and then I have extra lids here. But I also got my jars ready. So all my jars are heating up. I like to just use really, really hot water. So that's my trick. And then I will dump them one at a time. Well, I usually do 2 at a time, but I'll dump the water and then I will fill them. So let's start doing that. Okay, I think I'm only going to get maybe 4 black beans. We'll see though. And I'm going to turn this one off because it is about done. So I'm wanting to use fresh water on top of these instead of this dark black water. I just double checked the recipe. It says to leave an inch headspace, which is pretty normal. I might leave a little tiny bit more than that just because in case they expand more, I'd rather have them not be too packed. The inch headspace is including the water. So if I just get that many beans in, it's about an inch. We're good. And that one probably has too many. Okay, let's grab some fresh water to top them off. And again, I don't put any salt or anything in them, which is fine. That's all just personal preference. I will salt them in whatever meal I have when I make them. Okay, next up we need to debubble. So, got some little bubbles coming up. And let's check the headspace for 1 inch. That one's good. That one's a bit much, so I gotta grab a spoon. Oop. Much better. Okay, we are going to wipe the rims. Get a lid. Put a ring on them. Finger tight, which is a little tighter than you would think. For a while I thought finger tight just meant like finger tight, but nope, crank it a little bit, but not a ton. The water in here is now hot enough, so I am going to start putting these jars in and we are on our way. Okay, I got so many more jars than I thought, so I'm coming over here to look, and I had a note that said pinto beans fill 2 quarts with 1 pound of dried beans. And I don't ever do quarts, I always do pints, so I didn't even read that. So that would be 4 pints with 1 pound, and I did 2, that would be 8 pints. So black beans are the same, I got 8 pints, which means I'm going to have way too many pinto beans, so I might have to run a second canner load. Okay, for these it's going to be a little different. I'm going to add 2 scoops of dried onion. And then 1 scoop of garlic. And I made sure that there's no thickening agents in here. It's just garlic, water, and citric acid. You don't want any thickening agents when you're canning. So it says 1 garlic clove. That might be more than a garlic clove. Okay. Let's see here. So for these ones, I am going to use the liquid that is in the beans right now because that is the delicious spiced liquid that we made. All right, the canner is full. Had I read my recipe right, I totally would have done just 2 pounds of pinto beans instead of 4. But we are going to get this lid on. This is very hard to do one-handed. There we go. And I need to let this vent for 10 minutes. So once it starts venting, we'll do 10 minutes, and then we have to let it come up to pressure. And then we need, let's see here, 75 minutes for pints. So it's gonna be a minute. Here's what I've still got. So I have quite a few beans down here. I haven't decided quite yet if I'm going to can them or do something else with them. It's a long time. So by the time we come up to pressure and such, we've got a lot going. So maybe I will, oh, I don't know. Do I want to just keep boiling them? I have to figure out what I'm going to do with them. I'll let you know. This is processed for the full 75 minutes. I have given it enough time to come down in pressure. It's almost there. It's right about the 0, but the valve hasn't come down yet. So we have a few minutes before I can take the lid off. All right, we are ready to take the first set of jars out. I am going to remove the lid, and I'm always worried about burning myself, so I use these funny looking gloves. These are great for not burning myself, and then that makes it so I don't get burned by steam. So let's see here. Up top is the refried beans, which are just flavored pinto beans. They look beautiful. Look at that. Okay, and then I'm going to use this to get out this shelf. I'm going to put the black beans here, and then when I take out more pinto beans, I will put them there. I also went ahead and added the garlic and the onions into the liquid instead of doing it in individual jars on the second round, so we're good there. Get this reloaded and go again. Well, that only took many hours since I had to run another canner load, but we did it. We have a ton of beans here. I won't need to make beans for quite a while. I haven't even used refried beans in a while, but that's because I haven't had any. So I guess we can't really think too hard there. Some burrito casseroles must be in my near future because those are delicious and I have a ton of beans. So anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here and you haven't yet, please subscribe. I'd love to see you. Woo! We had a ping. That's fantastic. If you're interested in some other canning videos, I will put some recent canning videos here, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Here are the jars, all of them but one of each sealed, so that was good. We only had 2 jars not sealed. Now this second set, I did make sure to have everything mixed in, and this looks really good. The first set, there's a lot of the stuff at the bottom, like the onions. I should have either put them on top or of course just mixed them in. So I think I'm going to use these ones up first and hopefully really quickly because I'm kind of questioning their safety. But I mean, they're hydrated. It's just, it was the density too much. So definitely don't put them directly in the jar. Mix them in and this looks fantastic.